Hi guys, it's Legionero back with another tutorial. Today's tutorial is Simplicity 8557 and I am doing the cardigan, which is view E. I have two tutorials on the channel already for the dress and the crop pants. I'll link those below, but today we're going to work on the cardigan. I would like to say welcome to all of my new subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. So let's go ahead and get started with this tutorial, and once I complete the tutorial I'll let you know my thoughts on the cardigan. Up next you will see a list of all of the tools you need for this tutorial. So here are the pattern pieces you're going to need. You're going to need pattern piece number 8, which is your front, and you are going to cut 2. You're going to need pattern piece number 9, which is your back, and you're going to cut 1 on the fold. You're going to need pattern piece number 10, which is your pocket. You will cut 4. Pattern piece number 11, your front facing. You're going to cut 2 of fabric and 2 of interfacing. Pattern piece number 12, this is your back facing. You're going to cut 1 of fabric and 1 of interfacing on the fold. And pattern piece number 13, which is your sleeve, you're going to cut 2. So cut out all of your pattern pieces. Make sure you mark all of your notches and your darts, and not darts, your dots. And let's get started. First, we will be working with our front and back pieces and our pocket pieces. And on your front and back pieces, you should have a notch here in the middle, and you should also have 2 circles. This is where you're going to place your pocket. You'll know that because your pocket also has a notch and 2 circles. So make sure that you mark those circles and you marked your notch. I'm going to add the pockets to the back first, and then we'll add the pocket to the front pieces. So let's work with the back first. You want to make sure that your fabric, the right side is facing up. So this is the right side of my fabric. Anytime you're doing pockets, you want to make sure that you place it with the right side facing. All right, I'm going to take 1 of my pocket pieces. And again, you're making sure that the right sides are facing. So the right side of the back piece is facing up, and the right side of your pocket is facing down. So right sides together. Find your circles and your notch, and you're going to pin. You're going to pin the other pocket for your back piece the same way, right sides facing. So now let's pin our pocket to our 2 front pieces. You should have the same notch and circles on your front piece that you had on your back piece, and remember you have the same on your pocket piece. So let's go ahead and pin our pocket pieces to our front pieces. You're going to pin them the same way. Make sure that the right side of your fabric is facing up. I'm just moving one piece because I have 2 pieces and I don't want to pin them both together. All right. So find your notch. right? You should have one more pocket piece. You pin that to the other front piece, and then you go to the sewing machine, and on your back pattern piece and your two front pattern piece, you just sew your pocket piece to your back and your front piece. All right, so you do it separately. You do back first, just sew it to the back piece, and then the front piece, sew your pocket piece to your front piece. Once you have your pocket sewn to your back piece and your two front pieces, you're going to press your seams towards the pocket. So you'll take it to the ironing board and press your seam towards the pocket. Now, only on the two front pieces, you're going to understitch. And what you're going to do is, after you press your seams towards the pocket, you should see your line of stitching. You're going to understitch, and you're only stitching the pocket and the seam allowance. So you'll see your row of stitching here. You're going to sew close to your row of stitching on the seam allowance and the pocket. So don't sew your front pattern piece, only sew the pocket and the seam allowance. All right. Since I didn't use a different colored thread, which I should have, I marked my stitching line. Hope you all can see that. I marked my stitching line with tailor's chalk. So when you are understitching, if this is your stitch line for your seam allowance, you sew on the other side of that and the pocket, not the actual front pattern piece. All right, hope that makes sense. So now that we have our pockets attached to our front and back pieces, I'm going to deviate from the instructions just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and stitch my front pieces to my back piece at the shoulder seams, and then I'm going to add my sleeve using the flat method. In the instructions, you go ahead and sew the side seams of the cardigan, and then you sew the shoulder seams. But and then you have to ease the sleeve in, but I don't want to do my sleeve like that. I want to do the flat method. So take your back piece and lay it with the right side facing up. Take one of your front pieces at the shoulder seam and make sure that they are right sides facing, and at the notch you're going to pin. And take your other front piece with right sides facing and pin at your notch, and then pin the rest of the sleeve, shoulder seam, right. You're going to take this to the sewing machine, and then you're going to sew your shoulder seams together 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so I went ahead and I serged my seams. Make sure you press your seams open if you don't have a serger, and if you do have a serger, still serge and press. All right, so now you want to open up your front and back pieces so that your armhole area is showing and the right side is facing up. Take your sleeve, and with the right sides facing, you're going to match your notches first. You should have 2 notches on the back side of your sleeve and your back pattern piece, and you should have 1 notch on your front part of your sleeve and your front pattern piece. So once you match your notches, go ahead and pin the rest of your sleeve together. You should also have some circles where you marked your circles, so make sure that you place those together as well. Once you have it pinned, go ahead and sew from one end all the way to the other end, and go ahead and pin and sew your other sleeve the same way. Okay, so once we add our sleeves, the next thing you're going to do, you're going to place the front and back pieces with right side spacing, and you're going to pin. But before I show you that, I've already done one side, so you're going to pin from the sleeve all the way down. But on your pattern piece, you should have had several circles. And these are the circles for the splits that are going to be on your cardigan. So there's a split on the sleeve. There's also a split at the bottom of your cardigan. So what I do, I use different color pins to let me know where those slits are going to be, so I know where to start and stop. I also use different color pins on the pocket, because on the pocket you're going to sew from the sleeve and you're going to sew down, and you should have had a circle right there and you mark that circle. I used a different color pin because I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to sew around the pocket, and then I'm going to start here. This is where the other circle was on the pocket, and I'm going to start here and continue down and stop until I get to the other yellow pin where my split starts. So you can mark it with a marking pen or chalk roller or tailor's chalk, but I like to use different color pens to let me know where I need to start and stop according to the pattern. All right, so now let me show you how to pin your sides. All right, so take your pieces you've added on your sleeve, and you're going to place them with right side spacing, matching up your pockets. And I like to start pinning under the arm. All right. Then I find my notch on my sleeve and I pin. And if there's a notch on your front and back piece, I find that notch. And this notch here at the bottom, this is actually where the split starts. So I'm gonna use a different color pin right there. All right. Making sure I don't have any other notches. I'm also going to find the notches on my pockets. You have a notch here on your pocket, but you also have your start and where you stop sewing your pocket. You should have some circles on your pattern piece, so I'm just going to add my different color pin right there and right here. Right, so now I'm just going to pin the rest of the side seam. All right, once you have your entire side seam pinned, you're You're going to take it to the sewing machine. You're going to start here because remember you have a split in your sleeve. You're going to start here, sew all the way down. When you get here on the pocket, you stop, back stitch a little bit, go around your pocket, and you're going to come, once you sew your pocket, you're going to come here, back, make sure you back stitch, and you sew from here down to where the split ends or begins. All right, so our cardigan is almost finished. So now what you want to do, set this aside, and you want to work with pieces 11 and 12. All right, so make sure that you have ironed on your interfacing before you work with pieces 11 and 12. You should have some notches on piece number 11. You should also have some notches on piece number 12. Alright, so what you're going to do, you're going to take piece number 12. You're going to match your notches on piece 11. So here's, piece 11 has two pieces. So with right sides facing, match your notches. And do the same thing on the other piece that you have for pattern piece number 11. Match your notches and pin with right sides facing. Alright, you're going to take it to the sewing machine and you're going to sew both sides together, and it will be one long piece. Okay, you should have one long piece now. Now grab your cardigan, and with the right side of your cardigan facing up, place your collar on your cardigan with the right sides facing. Match your notches and pin. Match your shoulder seams and pin the wrist all the way down on both sides. Alright, once you have your collar facing pinned on both sides, you're going to take it to the sewing machine and you'll start. I like to start in the middle and then sew down one side and then come back and start in the middle again and sew down the other side. Now that you have added your collar facing, now you need to understitch. So what you're going to do, you're going to press your facing, your collar facing, and the seam allowance away from your garment. Alright, so your seam allowance should be going up towards the facing. And then you're going to understitch on the right side. And what you can do, if you're afraid that your seam allowance is gonna kind of shift back towards the garment, just take one hand and kind of hold your seam allowance under your facing. So as you're stitching, you have one hand to guide, and then you have, with me it'll be my right hand, up under the facing, making sure that the seam allowance stays going towards the facing. Alright, so now that you're done with your understitching, turn your garment to the wrong side, and what you're going to do, your facing, you're going to turn it in to the inside of your cardigan and press it. So I'm just going to use pins. Right, so you're turning it to the inside and then you'll press. You'll do this all the way around, but at the bottom leave about a 3 to 5 inch opening at the bottom. All right, so when you start sewing, like if you start on this end and sew all the way around, if that's how you're going to do it, just make sure you come in about 3 to 5 inches before you start sewing. Now if you're going to start in the center and work your way down each side, just make sure to stop 3 to 5 inches on both sides at the bottom. And I'm pinning this and I'm covering up this seam allowance on the inside. Alright, once I'm done sewing, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew around again. Okay, so now you should have the collar facing attached to the cardigan. And you left an opening here at the bottom. So what you're going to do, you're going to take the bottom where you left the opening and you're going to fold it with the right side spacing. So opposite of how you sewed it, you're going to fold it with the right side facing and pin. And what you're going to do, you're going to take it to the sewing machine, and whatever your hem is going to be, so if your hem is going to be 5/8 of an inch or 1 inch, go ahead and sew across. Alright, and I'll show you. I did it on this side already. So I have it with right side spacing and I sewed across. Now what I'm going to do, and be careful, don't cut through your stitching. I'm just going to cut a little square out without cutting through my stitching. Alright, so you cut out the square, and now what you want to do, you just want to take it and you want to flip it Alright, so you have a nice clean corner here on your cardigan. Alright, and once you flip it, you give it a good press. So you take it, you flip it, give it a good press, and then now this will actually serve as a guide for your hem and hem across the bottom of your cardigan. All right, you do the same thing to both sides. Once you do that as well, make sure you sew the opening closed that you left, all right, in order to turn this corner. So just sew down to close that opening up. Only thing you have to do is just hem the rest of your cardigan across the bottom and hem your sleeves, and you'll be all done. So you are all done with your cardigan. So I'm going to be very honest with you. This cardigan really gave me the blues. Partly my fault because I didn't interface the collar. So the collar didn't sew right. So that's absolutely my fault. But when I usually make cardigans, I make them with a very thick ponte knit or double knit. So the collars are already very stiff, so I don't add interfacing. And I was thinking the same thing with this fabric, but did not work with that fabric. This is why you don't see a picture of the cardigan in a finished look, because I really didn't even finish it. I need to just hem the bottom of the collar and flip it around that last part of the video before you hem the rest of the cardigan. That's all I have left. I'll finish it one day, but I doubt I will ever take pictures in this look. I will probably make it again in a different fabric and just talk about it in one of my weekly recap videos. But I really hope that I was clear in all of the instructions in making the cardigan. I hope that you can follow the tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the video and if the instructions are clear. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.